last night's shocking ITV documentary, The British Blood Scandal, Poisoned at School. It focuses on the tragic stories of haemophiliac schoolboys who were victims of what has since become known as the worst treatment disaster in NHS history. We watched it last night, of course, Janet. Very difficult watch. It was incredibly emotional.
Really hard watch. Hard for me because a few years ago I had a friend who received contaminated blood in an operation, and he's dead now. So yes, I found it really moving because this was a story of four boys, now men, who went to a college in the West Country. They were really excited to go there. It was a great college, had a great reputation, and they went there because they were all haemophiliacs. And so the college catered for children with disabilities and...
When you say college, it was like school age?
School age,
yeah.
Yeah. So they were from low teens up to college age. And they got an extremely good education. But because it had a medical unit within the school, especially to treat the haemophiliacs, because if they knocked themselves or started bleeding, they needed a clotting agent immediately. So what happened was that the National Health Service ran out of blood produced in this country that had the clotting factor in it. So they instead bought the blood from America, and this is the root of this huge, huge scandal. Because in America, they did not go for all the safety regulations that were in place in this country. They collected blood, astonishingly, in prisons, from drug users, in poor and deprived areas, and that blood a large amount of that blood was contaminated with hepatitis and HIV.
So did they know that, Janet, when they sold it to the National Health?
No, the National Health bought the blood, and then it became apparent that the blood was contaminated. And in the end, after many, many years, bear in mind that these boys in the school were encouraged to have these jabs every single week for their own health. So the blood that they were given, some of it was contaminated, not 100%, but a large proportion. Now, when the NHS found out that the American blood was contaminated, the Americans then heated the blood to get rid of the HIV element of it. But the NHS still used the contaminated blood. That's the astonishing, appalling scandal.
Has anyone ever taken accountability for it?
No, and in the film there's footage of Ken Clarke, when he was health minister, saying the NHS has now nothing to answer for here. And John Major saying, oh, well, it was just bad luck.
So there was an inquiry and they gave their findings a year ago.
But this was in the 70s, this happened.
No, but the inquiry into it, the modern inquiry, which, of course, has been brought about by journalists doing work and uncovering it all. The inquiry chairman a year ago, Sir Brian Langstaff, said this disaster was not an accident. The infections happened because those in authority, doctors, the blood services and successive governments did not put patient safety first. Now, you cannot get a clearer verdict of what has gone on here, and yet here we are a year on and they still haven't had the money that is supposedly ring-fenced for
And I
them.
bet over the years there have probably been several whistleblowers, but as I know someone going through a case at the moment, unfortunately, the whistleblowers get fired from the NHS.
Well, when the boys were given the injections, in the film, you discover that one boy contracts HIV at 12 years old, and his parents aren't told for 3 years. And the scale of the disaster is just awful. I mean,
no one has been jailed for this.
No, nobody has been jailed, and almost 3,000 people have died, and it affects 30,000 people. Because obviously not everybody who got the infected blood was a haemophiliac, that infected blood was given to women after childbirth. It was given to people like my friend after routine surgery operations. So not only did some of them contract hepatitis C, which leads to liver cancer, they got HIV, and they then could possibly have contaminated their partners and passed on the HIV. And they're entirely innocent people.
In October, Rachel Reeves said that, I think it was 11.8 billion has been set aside for this. Well, why is it set aside?
Yeah.
Why is it
Can
not
I
being
just say
paid?
it's like the post office thing? What I don't understand, and you know, but there is so much bureaucracy. If you've got £12 billion and those people have got a bank account, why is it years before that money makes it into their bank account?
Exactly.
Just put it in.
Well, and I think this is the point, and actually there was four sort of main stories in this documentary last night. There was Steve, Gary and Richard, and they all spoke incredibly well, very emotionally. I mean, there was 122 students at the time they were in this college.
Got HIV.
90 of them have died between 1970 and 1987. And you just think the money, of course, it might help at some point, but as their point was, it's not actually about the money, it's about the justice and the lack of...
And having it acknowledged.
Exactly, having it acknowledged. And also just this idea that they weren't listened to, they weren't told anything. Their parents were never consulted about anything. One of the gentlemen actually had a permission note that had been sent out to his parents asking if he could be part of this Factor VIII trial. The parents said no on this.
Yeah.
And it was still distributed too.
Massive
there was just
cover-up.
so many wrongs on so many levels. And you think it just brings it all back to how we all feel about where we are today. Do we trust the people we're supposed to trust?
No.
And that's the problem. But it was a deeply upsetting watch. And
Presumably the people who were responsible are no longer with us.
Well, the doctor that conducted many of the experiments at the school is dead, so he can't answer. But
and several of the other doctors that were involved aren't here anymore.
Yeah.
So, and that was...
As
that
the
was
old saying
huge
goes,
problem.
accept nothing, believe no one, challenge everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, a lot of people don't know.
Well, exactly. But last night certainly enlightened me, and you know much more, Janet, obviously, because of what you've gone through. But it's a fascinating documentary. Please watch it if you didn't do so last night.